one of the other things that comes along that's really critical in the psychology of selling, especially if you're selling expertise or knowledge in a certain industry, is you start telling people the problems that they have that they don't know they have. And that casts a wider net in the sales conversation than one of sort of the pitfalls that a lot of people fall into, which is selling the solution. Because if you sell your solution too soon, you go from an emotional decision to a logical decision. And often people will end up concluding that, oh, that's a great product for somebody else.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes. And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Adam Wallace. Adam is author of Revalue, and so I am very much looking forward to talking to him about all things value. So, Adam, welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so a nice, I don't know, I think it's an easy question for a guy who's written a book about value, but let's see if we just start off on this one, straight into it. Mm-hmm. What is value?
Well, it's a deceptively easy question, but often one that leads you to a lot more and a lot deeper question. So at its essence is most people, when they're buying something, are not looking for what they're actually buying. They're looking to get to somewhere that they value more. So the benefit of knowing that and looking at that relative to what is value and what a person's willing to pay is that's what's actually motivating the purchasing decision. And the more you can speak to that, the more value you can generate for them. The downside to that point of view is it's incredibly idiosyncratic. It's not only idiosyncratic, it is very contextually dependent. So what is valuable to one person is not valuable to another. So as your architect in a sales journey, it becomes a very idiosyncratic game of really discovering what the person you're talking to values the most.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I've often said that values in the eye of the beholder. So that's what you're saying there. It's idiosyncratic. It's like that person will probably think this is very valuable. And you actually said something really important there, and willing to pay for it. That's where we're finding this stuff out. Another that you come along thinking, well, I know what people value now. Oh, they don't seem to care about that in the slightest.
Strange one, isn't it? That's right. And the willing to pay for it is a huge red herring that I find a lot of people step into, because a lot of people over-index on what people say they value. However, if you think about it, when a person begins, if we're talking about what we care about, a lot of times we're doing something other than strategizing what I'm willing to put my time and attention on. We might be negotiating our identity. We might be just having a chat at the bar. I mean, there's so many different things that could be driving what I espouse, but really it's what people pay attention to, what grabs their time, and what they pay the money on is a better, or at least in my industry, is a more reliable indicator of what they actually value versus anything they can tell me in customer feedback or surveys or things like that.
Yeah, I think I read or heard somewhere that often people will say something, but they don't really mean it. And I don't mean that they are deliberately lying to you, but it's sort of, they'll say the thing that they're kind of supposed to say, or that they think, but actually deep down that isn't really what's actually going on. Is that right? Have I heard that right, or am I making stuff up now?
No, it's spot on. And I think if you kind of think about it, most people aren't philosophers. Most people aren't deeply introspective on what motivates every action of their day. They're attempting to go through life. I mean, think about it this way. When was the last time in your day-to-day life you decided to make a decision to get to a worse place than where you currently are?
Yeah, I'm going to make my life terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna wake up this morning,
but I don't think they were deliberate.
but no, isn't that interesting though? Right? Like I wake up next to my wife Like I've never woken up and say, I'm going to say the thing that's going to tick her off this morning and just set the tone of the day. What? Now, I've said those things, but at
Yeah.
no moment have I ever aimed at trying to get to that place. Now, even if like my forecast, okay, I'm dealing with a negative issue in my portfolio or whatever the case is, and I'm having to respond to stuff, I'm still making like, yeah, it might be worse off than where I used to be, but it's still better off than the prediction that I see the current path that I'm trying to get to. So innately, we are all going after something we value more than where we currently are from what we currently see. So in that way, we start to see anything that somebody is selling us, any idea somebody is selling us, any person we kind of meet and interact with in sort of the day-to-day life as either a pathway to progress closer to something I value more, a tool to overcome an obstacle that's in my way. Now that's a lot of B2B sales, right? All we're doing is selling a solution to a client who has a problem. They don't even care about the problem. They just want to get over the problem as fast as possible to get to their ultimate destination of what they value more. And then that third one is often like if you think about the Four Seasons, or if you think about bottle service or luxury handbags, they're actually selling an embodiment of the destination the customers want. It would be silly to think about the Four Seasons as solving a lodging problem in the traditional sort of what problem do you solve? No, they sell you the embodiment of the lifestyle you want to live. Now, you might only be able to fractionally rent that 1 week a year, but for 1 week a year, you can have the same destination that ultimately you want to get to.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Yeah, no. But then I think as salespeople,
Mhm.
we get in the way of this sometimes, don't we? Oh, well, quite
uh,
often, because
you're,
we get product trained to within an inch of our lives. We
hmm
talk about the product, the features, all of these things that
hmm
customers go, I don't know why you're telling me this. It's just not interesting to me. I don't care. I'm trying to
That's right.
overcome this problem or get to this nicer place. And you're banging on about this bloody thing you sell. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
No, and think about it this way. So in those situations when we fall in that trap, and frankly, we all fall in that trap sometimes, right?
Right.
Because the more we know about something, the more we actually preference it and the more we value it. So it's kind of just the nature of if we know all the details, then we're going to appreciate the implication of those details. But in a sales conversation, you have to remember your buyer is often using a set of heuristics, and heuristics are just the thumb sucks of how we perceive what we're talking about for what they want. And you're exactly right. The dominant thing is what they value and what they're going after. And then your job as a salesperson is to learn what that is and learn sort of the meaning or the intelligibility that person or the value that person is putting on where they're trying to get to, so that you can understand what you do need to say about the product or service that will assist them in getting there. Because the last thing, the fourth sort of bucket on how your product or service can occur for people is as an obstacle in their way. And that's the one to avoid, and that's the one that you can easily fall into. And we've actually seen a shift in this in the past 20 years as well, because more and more customers are appreciating self-service. So often by the time they actually agree to have a meeting with you, they've already sold themselves on your products or service. Now they're actually in an emotional decision. So every buying decision is conducted from our emotional system, the limbic system in our brain. So when more now than ever, when people are actually taking the time to engage with a salesperson, it's no longer a selection criteria. It is literally an emotional conversation of assurance or clarification, or often they're asking technical questions and they don't even care about the technical answers because they've already read the response to the technical answers. What they're looking for is confidence and assurance. Is there a human that will back this up? Is this for real? Because I've seen too many things where people say something and then it's just vaporware, and they're trying to get a sense of the actual relationship that's to come, not the actual technical criteria for which they've already read your sales material already.
Oh, right. And so we as salespeople, we hear the question, think, oh, this person's really interested in my product. They need the full demo. They need to look at all the like buttons and gadgets and all the rest of it. And really they're going, no, I just want a bit of reassurance. I want to see that there's somebody there to
Yeah,
make it feel less risky for me. And
that's right.
okay, good. because I've pretty much decided anyway. I just wanted to prove that I was right.
Exactly. And on the flip side, when it's not that, it might be like they're required to get 3 bids, and you can just cut right through that and be honest. So is what you really need just another bid? Okay, great. Let me give that to you. I'll help you out on that. But I don't have to spend my time and energy to do that. I can actually understand what they're trying to get to, and then I'll be able to enable that, and then have that relationship for the future because I'm delivering the value they actually seek, including when it's not something that I'm trying to sell.
Yeah, so it's with the RFP thing, or look at the points about to
Mm,
tender. They've already done that work, either on their own
mm-hmm,
or with somebody else who was smart
mm-hmm.
enough to understand how to get in early at the right
Yep,
level.
yep.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And start to establish where value really might be. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're asking for this, but we hear, oh, they love us. They might want to buy from us. Excellent. I'm in with a
Yeah.
chance. Yeah.
Exactly.
Less than
Exactly.
10% talking to procurement people. Brilliant. So, okay then. So if this is what's going on, what are some of the things that we can do as a salesperson to position ourselves to be having, I don't know, a better conversation, perhaps earlier, or understanding this is what somebody's really asking, and
Mm-hmm.
to do a better job? What can we do?
No, absolutely. I think one of the first things that I do, so part of my issue, part of my career path was I used to work as a corporate fixer for large companies and multi-billion-dollar joint ventures. And then now I just own a portfolio of private companies. And part of the reason I made that switch was because I just kept on seeing disproportionate value creation and capture on being able to focus on more niches on the tail ends. So if you kind of think about the change that's happened, no matter what you sell, your market penetration can be deeper and more specific than ever before. Geographic bounds have kind of changed. So the low hanging fruit that I immediately see on most companies is an 80-20 prioritization of your customer base. If you think from you, even though your customers might buy identical products or services, you do not deliver equal value to all your customers. So the real question is, who do you deliver the most value for? Or sort of another way of saying it is, what subset of your existing customer profiles and personas do you deliver the most value for? Or does your product unlock the most value? And then being able to really hone in a sort of a micro way that used to 20 years ago, this would be insane. It would be terrible advice. You didn't have a way to sort through and identify those people. Whereas now, sometimes doubling revenue within 12 months is more about firing and stop going after the lowest 20% and just really doubling down on their efforts on who is unlocking more reliably the most value for.
So, I mean, have you described, and I'm probably going to do a massive disservice here, but essentially, have you described niching there?
Yes, yes.
A bit, a more considered and thoughtful version of niching, which people are
That
terrified about, aren't they? Because it's like, oh, all my eggs in one basket. I'm not going to make as much money. I might miss out on potential. Or am I speaking for me when I say this? Because I find it hard. And then most people I talk to do find it hard. But what you're
that's
saying
right.
is no, work out those ones that got the more value, and you'll be having better conversations with them. You'll have such a happier life.
Yeah, no, exactly. I one time grew a small portfolio from 3 million to 20 million just by recognizing there's only 75 people in the world who actually get value from this product. Now, the truth of the matter, and so now here's the interesting thing. So, like, you could sustain 20 million a year on recurring revenue just by selling to those 75 people. Now, did we sell to other people? Of course, we sold to other people. The difference is, and I think this is the false conclusion that interrupts people from being able to execute this, is just because you know your target market doesn't mean other people won't find value and won't buy from you. It's just that you're not spending your energy aiming at so many different things, because you can't be all things to all people. So the more you can really hone, here is how we unlock value, the more your entire through line in your company can line up to deliver that value. But other people will see it and they may still buy from you. So it's actually, ironically, you don't end up excluding as many people as most people would assume to begin with. But what you are doing is you are Pareto optimizing your energy, which is the limiting factor, or your bandwidth, or your sales resources. And that's the limiting factor that has to have that micro niche not the fact that at the end of the day, of course, I'll still sell to other people.
Yeah. And I actually have heard someone else talk about this. So they say you do a better
Mhm.
job because you get so focused on who you're talking to. You
That's
do a
right.
brilliant job talking to them and you talk about their value. And so
Oh,
you are so
okay.
compelling that other people
Hmm.
think this guy really knows what he's on about. Well, you're talking to these people over here. Do you reckon you could do that for me? Well,
That's right.
yeah. And you become way more magnetic as a result.
Exactly. And one of the other thing that comes along that's really critical in the psychology of selling, especially if you're selling expertise or knowledge in a certain industry, is you start telling people the problems that they have that they don't know they have. And that casts much more a wider net in the sales conversation than one of sort of the pitfalls that a lot of people fall into, which is selling the solution. Because if you sell your solution too soon, you go from an emotional decision to a logical decision. And often people will end up concluding that, oh, that's a great product for somebody else, but it's not for us. Versus the more you can, if you niche, you will run into the same similar problems. And I don't mean like generic problems. Oh, you're in this industry, you must have this problem. No, no, you can be very specific to the problem that that person who sits in that seat has had over the past 6 months that they're not even aware of how to describe. And the second you're able to describe it better than they can, where they often say that's right, then
Yeah.
you now know, okay, you just created a certain level of trust and insight. They will almost say yes to whatever your solution is because you are able to actually diagnose something that they don't quite have their arms around. And that's just not available when you're spread out among a wide customer base because you don't know the market in that way.
Yeah, you also sometimes get that kind of relief washes over them. They go that, ah, yes, you've put into words what I've not been able to describe, but yes, that is it. And that you've done
Exactly.
this, then you must have a
Hmm.
solution for it. Yeah,
Exactly.
I like that. So we're staying with problem, we're staying emotional,
Hmm.
we're talking about stuff to evoke that and to
Hmm.
help people understand. Now
Hmm.
that's how I see it.
That's right.
Because could could this be considered a bit manipulative, a bit unethical, do you
So
think?
I think the manipulation and ethics part has to do with being transparent and giving people choice, not appreciating this is how humans function. So I would draw the line like do people use a whole lot of different techniques and tools to be manipulative and unethical? Of course they do.
Mm.
But what we're really talking about is just appreciating how the only people capable of buying your product actually live their day-to-day life and see the world, and embracing that to reduce the amount of friction and actually deliver more value to them. I think the lines for me around manipulation is where you um, start to conclude answers for them that you can't back up, or make promises that you can't back up, or intentionally obfuscate or mislead. Stay away from that, which is just basic morals,
Yeah.
and instead really embrace that. No, no, emotionally, look, I don't care about your product. I can go buy from three other people. I care about X, or like, I care about, can I call you and you solve my problem when I need it? Okay,
Yeah.
great. That might make the sell. And if as long as you can back up and deliver that, go for it.
Yeah. So it's the intention, isn't it? It's the we understand this is how people think,
That's
and
right.
we've got more information than ever before, haven't we? I mean,
Yes.
we can actually look inside the mind with, or in the brain with fMRI and the rest of it. And so we're saying, right, well, we know how to nudge those
Hmm.
responses. We know how to
Hmm.
make people sit up, pay attention to stuff that is going on in their world. We're not making that
Hmm.
up. It shines a light on that they can then decide to do something about, and then we can
Hmm.
give them the options and we can make it an informed decision and they can work out what to do next. But we're
That
probably in the
that's
box
right.
seat because we're the ones which have helped them get it, like you said.
E- Exactly. And
Yeah.
and I think that's a bit of the nature of the challenge we're running into now. It's so much easier, like I said before, to get in front of your prime buyer or your target market than ever before. I think the nature of the challenge is actually we are so inundated with so many different solutions and options, all of which can be argued can be very viable. So what the real struggle of sales has started to become is a bit of matching what technically is called the relevance realization of your buyer. But here's all that means. Have you ever bought a car or thought about buying a car and then immediately seen how many people in your neighborhood drive that exact same car?
Everyone. You see tons of
Exactly.
them.
But it wasn't like those cars weren't driving in front of your eyeballs every day. They just weren't relevant to you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so much right now is the solutions we actually need are right in front of us every day. We actually see them. They're on the billboards as we're going through the airport. It's that, but I don't actually have the thing that makes that relevant to me. So I actually don't perceive it. So I think a lot of times, especially with the marketing and the initial introduction of your products or solution, it's a struggle to match that relevance realization of your buyer as to what they see. So even understanding how your customers perceive the world, even when you don't agree with it, even when you think, well, why would that even be a problem? You just have this answer. No, no, no. I have to really embrace. And the only way to do this, just on the softer side, is to literally have a buddy of mine, Chris Voss, he was an FBI hostage negotiator, and he calls it tactical empathy. You have to so empathize as to how they see the world that you can say something that's going to cut through all of the not even noise, just the stuff we ignore, to really match how they're currently seeing the world and what they currently care about, just to get that initial meeting, initial conversation, or just have them notice you to begin with.
Yeah, because I was going to pick you up on it because you said it's easier to get a meeting. And I suspect that most people are finding it harder. But
Well,
then you
easier
carried
to
on
get in
saying,
front of.
because I
Yeah,
know what's
yeah.
relevant.
That's right.
No, when I've worked out what's relevant and I can put it in front of people, absolutely you'll cut right through the noise and they'll want to speak to you because, again, this person appears to have got it. Whereas
That's
everyone
right.
else is knocking on the door. They're talking about irrelevant things because it's not a problem, or they're not even framing it as a problem. They're just saying,
Mm,
I want to talk to you. Fill in
mm,
my Calendly link. You're like, well, I don't even know why. No.
exactly.
Yeah. But when you're going, this is what's happening in your
Mm,
world, more than
mm,
likely,
mhm,
gosh, it is.
mm, mhm.
Or I don't know. Maybe it is. I probably should speak to you to find out. That's what we're looking to do. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So relevance, being highly empathetic. What what else are we doing then? What else is going to help us as a salesperson to really appreciate this value so we can position it? And like we said it early on, people want to pay for it.
Well, there is one thing that comes to mind that most people don't like hearing relative, but it is the handoff from sales to delivery. Because, part of the nature of being a great salesperson is to recognize that you're making promises, you've got colleagues that have to deliver on. And so it's always an interesting thing of when I used to do a lot more client-facing sales, it required a certain staying with, a certain bridge, a certain like making sure that I delivered the message. So I kind of think about it this way: it's my job to find out what that customer truly values
Yeah.
and why they're paying for it. Now, I've just done a huge heavy lift. So I just discovered the keys to the kingdom. I've got to make sure those keys get handed off to the entire delivery system of that of what it's going to take to deliver that value, so that other people can line up to it. Because in the same way that it might have taken me 6 months to really hone, test out, and make that sell, especially larger multi-million dollar ones, then I've got to make sure that actually gets in the hands of, where it's not just, oh, that's a nice brief, or I told you once, but no, that value can be embodied and delivered by the team, so that they know what to pay attention to.
Yeah. Because we were saying just off air, weren't we, before we hit record, that people don't buy stuff, they buy
Mm-hmm.
outcomes, they buy
That's right.
results. So the
Exactly.
value, another word, and often the teams will handing off to customer success. They
Mm-hmm.
talk in outcome, don't they? Which
Yeah.
is great. And then I think salespeople would do better in
Mm-hmm.
talking about outcomes from the very start because it would focus their mind to the value that we're talking about.
That's right.
Um, so yeah, so okay, the handoff to sales. We need to speak about outcome results.
Mm-hmm.
Got
Yeah.
it. What stops us doing a good job in that? Because again, by implication, you're kind of intimating that we're not always that good at it. What's going on?
No, that's a little bit of my specialty. Think about it this way: if you pursue every day, you're pursuing something you value, and you get up every day, and so you've selected your career, your friends, and stuff like that based on progressing to where you value. Now, your customers are doing the same thing, but then also your colleagues are doing the same thing. But they didn't choose your career; they choose something else. So it's kind of this interesting tapestry as you could imagine. Like if you just do a simple vector of what everybody in your organization or in the orbit are actually focused on trying to get to, you could imagine they could be like pickup sticks all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So part of the upfront job, I think it does rest a lot on the salespeople, is to shine such a bright light on this is the value our customers paying for. That yes, while each of us are going to have our own metrics and our own KPIs for operating the departments, and they should have a right foot tension in it, we have to allow the only reason we all have a job in the first place is to create value for that customer because that's the only thing they'll ever pay for. And so using that as sort of a overarching guide of what we line up to deliver. And then yes, have rightful debates about how we do it, especially if you're in a technical area, we're going to have to kind of do it. And is it worth expediting versus not? Do they really care versus is that just something they're saying? Like there's all the things you have to navigate. But why does it become hard? It's very simple. In order to be an expert, I have to value something different, disproportionate than what you do. And so often it's very easy for the expertise of anybody in the system to not value what the customers value. And that's where you get into the pitfalls.
No, you saw me smiling
Mm,
while you were talking through that. So I was thinking back, and it's a few years ago now, where I was working with a team, and they'd got a real problem that they
mhm.
were targeting a new customer group, and many of the salespeople didn't think these customers should buy their product because they weren't using it in the way that it was designed, and it was
That's
a
right.
waste.
That's right.
It was to do it was something that was quite flashy. It was they were using it for prestige because it's
Mm,
quite an expensive range cooker, and they're
mhm.
saying no, you should be cooking really nice like cakes and like homemade roasts on it. And like, okay, it doesn't matter if they want to buy it for a different reason. Well, no,
Mhm.
they shouldn't. That was
Exactly.
the attitude we had, and you just cast me back to that, which was really kind of funny.
I no, I love it as an example because I think that it might be an extreme example because they said it out
100%.
loud, but it's the same example I see on a day-to-day basis. They might
Yep.
not be that explicit with it, but it's kind of the ironic thing. It's the subtitle of the book I wrote is raise your prices and build your legacy. Like, what do those two things have to do with each other? Well, it's very simple. Your legacy you leave isn't based on what you value. It's based on whether you are able to unlock what other people value. And if you're so smug that you think what you value is more important than what they value, great, they're not going to buy your product. But the more you can actually embrace what they value is different than what you value, the more you can actually unlock a disproportionate pricing power to be able to charge more for what you're creating.
So, okay, we've talked about psychology then
Mm,
and understanding the customer psychology and that kind of thing. What you've just said there sounds as though it's the old oxygen mask thing, and this stuff starts at home.
mm,
We've got to
mhm,
do some work on ourselves, but our own oxygen mask on first to work out what's going on in our head, how we perceive stuff, and how
mm.
we do stuff before we should even be out talking to anybody else. Have I summarized that about right?
I think you can do both at the same time,
Okay.
but I think if you can become more aware of what you value and how it shapes what you perceive and what you don't perceive in that same
Mm.
way, until you chose to buy that car, hundreds of those cars were going by you every day and you never noticed it. So the more you can appreciate, oh, interesting. I am so prone to a happy customer that tells me good things. I actually might not be seeing how look, there's a whole submarket of grumpy customers, but they pay on time. They order 10 times the amount of things, and I'm actually not servicing them because they don't communicate with me in the way that I value. And often it's kind of interesting because we find the biggest economic gains in the places right adjacent to what we're already doing, but we don't value looking for it right there. So the more you can just kind of call out, oh, okay, I'm kind of prone to always going to the left. Let me explore a little bit to the right because that's usually where untapped value lies.
And I've seen this, and I guess you've seen this before, where
Mhm.
people think they have a certain market, or maybe
Mm,
even want
mm.
to have a certain market because it's kind of sexy, it's fun, it's
Yeah.
where they want to go and spend time and who they want to talk to. But actually, where they would have a bigger impact and make more money
Mhm.
is this other market. It's just that for them, it's a bit boring. They don't really
That's right.
want to hang out there, and so they won't go there. It's like, but that's where you're going to make a fortune. Oh no, no, we want to be over here because it's a lot cooler. And we sometimes see
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, totally. I call it the monetization curve, where a lot of people end up pursuing recognition and large markets at the cost of pricing power and the cost of margin. And it's exactly what you say. I think there's two things that cause it. I think one, it is the prestige of, oh, I want to be in there, like it's sexy, and this isn't sexy. So I trade sexy for better margins. The other thing is often people, in business strategies, if I'm going to share an example with you, it's a lot easier if I share an example with Apple or Microsoft and not an example with Megadata, a little $3 million company you've never heard of, right?
Mm.
So by me sharing examples of large company strategies, we get this disproportionate valuing of strategies that frankly doesn't apply to 98% of companies out there. Matter of fact, it's the wrong strategy. It's worse for the bottom line by pursuing it. So that's often a little bit of what I run into a lot of times is people get enamored with a strategy that mimics a company that they really admire, but has no true translation into how they can capture the value where they currently exist on the playing field.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. Um, I can't believe how fast time is going. I mean, you've shared a whole ton of stuff. What haven't I asked? What should I have asked you that you need to share to again help someone who's listening to this and they might be starting to think a little bit different? What else do we just need to put out there for them?
I think you answered. You asked very, very great questions on it because I think the nature of it, and just to kind of more summarize it than add an additional bit to it, is the real key is curiosity and just acknowledging what other people will value and pay more for. I would never value and I would never pay more for. So as soon as I just accept that premise, it's like, well, what is that? I don't know what that is. Oh, let me go out there and discover. So if you bring just a first step, bring a certain curiosity of I don't know, isn't this interesting? I would have never guessed that. And then just be able to pursue that and talk from it and engage from it. People will tell you what, like, it's funny. People won't tell you what they value, but they will say, here's what I'm trying to do. And if you say it back to them, and even if you get it wrong, they will correct you and like, no, that's not it. Here's it. And they would then tell you exactly where they're trying to get to. So I think it's just bringing that curiosity to it and then engaging from there.
Yeah, here's what I'm trying to do because that's
Hmm.
what I'm interested in. And that's
Hmm.
people's favorite subject, isn't
Hmm.
it? Themselves, what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
will tell you. And if you can just put it to one side, whether you find that interesting or not, and if you do,
That's
even
right.
better. But
Hmm.
even if you don't, that is interesting to them. That's where that value, that beauty in the eye of the beholder is going to be.
Exactly. And the more time you have them think through what it is they really want and how does it enable where they're trying to get to, ironically, the emotion is the more they end up valuing it and the more they pay for it. So there's a game of just they call it in behavioral economics mere exposure. Just by helping a person further think through and crystallize the picture in their mind, the more they will end up paying for the solution that gets them there.
Your exposure theory. Okay, cool. Adam, it's been absolutely superb. And I know there's a ton more. I mean, there's the book's worth of stuff. Where can people firstly find that and then find you?
For the book, easiest go to Amazon and just type in "we value." It'll be the first search result there. We've done very good, fortunately, with the consumer products as part of the number one release in that market. Relative to me, you can go to adamwallace.com on the website, and it'll have the links to the book, the publisher links, articles, as well as my contact form if anybody wants to reach out.
Awesome. Well, we'll make it even easier. We'll put those
Mhm.
into show notes so that
Beautiful.
they can find you. So brilliant. Thank you so much for coming along and sharing that. It's I say hopefully there's some food for thought on there and people will be a bit more curious about trying to find out some of this stuff. So yeah, thank you so much.
No, absolutely. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.